Skeletons of the Marital Closet, by Tang. Chapter 2001. Shawn had the confidence of a man in the comfort of his own home. Since I dared to come alone, I'm confident I'll be taking Ivy with me. Orem, do you think you can stop me? Shawn said. Shawn had long sensed something amiss with Ivy. Her worn-out appearance, pale face, not even makeup could conceal it. She had lost all her vitality. Clearly she had been mistreated by Orem. However, Gale was right beside him, and the two children were there too. Shawn had kept quiet and suggested leaving early. He could not involve his family. He had to ensure their safety. He did not want Gale and the children to witness this scene. So, Shawn planned to first send them back to Temperley Hall before returning. Unexpectedly, Joshua surprised him by handing over the bug. Shawn had been fully prepared for this confrontation with Orem. In the entire Sea City, no one could match him. Whether I can stop you, let's find out. Shawn, you're overly confident, Orem said. As Orem spoke, he glanced around, confirming whether Shawn had truly come alone. Shawn was too smart, too cunning. What if he had kept something up his sleeve? Don't bother looking, it's just me. Shawn easily saw through Orem's thoughts. Dealing with you alone is more than enough. Orem sneered. Heh! Alright, let's see how you'll take Ivy away today. He waved his hand and immediately the bodyguards restrained Ivy's hands, firmly controlling her, rendering her unable to move. Ivy offered no resistance, allowing herself to be controlled. She maintained a calm expression throughout because she trusted Shawn unconditionally. Shawn looked at Orem, his face full of disdain, lips slightly parted. I really want Gale to see what you look like now. He really wanted her to see his deceit. Then why don't you bring her here, rather than coming back here alone? Orem countered. I'm giving you a last shred of respect, Orem. What a joke. You, Shawn, giving me respect? Orem did not believe it at all. You'd rather crush me to dust. Shawn replied calmly. To Gale, you're an important person. If she knew your true self, she'd be devastated. I don't want her to be hurt. So. Shawn's gaze fixed on him. You still have a chance to turn back. I can give you that opportunity. Don't be ungrateful. Ha ha ha. Orem burst into laughter. The thought of Shawn granting him an opportunity was such a joke to him. Enough with these noble words. You're just pretending to give me a chance because you haven't caught evidence against me. Shawn remained silent. However, Ivy chuckled. There's already evidence. What are you talking about? Orem's face suddenly changed. I've been with you for so long to gather evidence. And just now, I've already moved the evidence out of your house. Mr. Wood, you should have it now, Ivy said. Chapter 2002. Shawn said, Yes, it's impossible. I've checked you thoroughly, there's nothing hidden on you. Orem exclaimed. Ivy gave him a glance. I did hide something. It's in my mouth. You, Orem's face turned instantly livid. I've already planned for this. If I can't keep it in my mouth, I'll swallow it. Then, I'll get it back after having my stomach pumped. Luckily, you only cared about whether I had anything hidden on my body, not my mouth. Ivy continued calmly. What if it's in your mouth? How did you give it to Shawn? Despite being several meters apart, Shawn and Ivy maintained no physical contact. I wouldn't be foolish enough to hand it directly to Mr. Wood. Orem, it's so obvious, can't you tell? Ivy replied expressionlessly. Orem clenched his fists, recalling everything, and suddenly it dawned on him. Joshua, you gave it to Joshua, you held him. Orem exclaimed. Ivy nodded. Yes, it looks like your rationality isn't completely gone. You wretch! Enraged, Orem slapped Ivy across the face. Her head jerked to the side, strands of hair falling loose. She was somewhat shocked but soon chuckled in self-derision. Orem had never had any feelings for her. Slapping her was no big deal. After all, she had stayed by his side from beginning to end, only to find evidence. His anger was just a normal reaction. Though this slap hurt physically, it stung her heart more. Orem, is your only skill in hitting women? Ha. No matter how polished you appear on the surface, it doesn't change the fact that deep down, you're scum. Ivy asked sarcastically. Orem was now somewhat flustered, emotions taking over. He grabbed Ivy by her hair. What evidence did you give to Shawn? What did you find? You were so cautious against me, but I couldn't take anything from you. Orem, your intelligence worked against you. When you planted a bug in my purse, you never imagined that one day, that bug would be the evidence that destroys you, right? Ivy replied coolly. Ivy's red lips curled into a smile as she looked at him. Orem immediately understood. He had extracted fingerprints from the bug, identifying Ivy as being aligned with Shawn. Yet, when he interrogated Ivy, The bug was right there, recording all their conversation. He had overlooked it. He had been so focused on keeping Ivy restrained that he forgot to remove the bug, completely forgetting its existence. Never had Orem imagined that the bug he had used would also be his downfall. It's this. Shawn pinched it between his fingers, making it gleam. Orem, this thing, you should be very familiar with. Though it was small and inconspicuous, Orem seemed to be crushed under its weight. He staggered and was unable to stand firm. I've heard all the conversations inside. Your own admission is stronger evidence than anything else. Orem, now that it's come to this, do you have anything left to say? Shawn murmured, toying with it. The living room fell into a deathly silence. Only the wind outside could be heard, whistling through. Suddenly, as if driven mad, Orem lunged straight at Shawn. He aimed to snatch the bug away. Chapter 2003. Who knew that just as Orem rushed forward, Shawn casually tossed the bug aside. The bug flew across the air. Orem never expected Shawn to do that. How can he toss such an important piece of evidence? Orem's gaze followed it, and the moment the bug hit the ground, he rushed over and picked it up tightly. Shawn stood still, watching him as if he were a clown. Did you pick it up? And then what? What can you do? Shawn asked. Orem realized then that Shawn must have already backed up the recording since he dared to show it so casually and throw away the bug. He was just too anxious and forgot about this. Sure enough, Shawn calmly said, I've already backed up the recordings multiple times. You can't destroy them. Trying to keep secrets forever? Do you think you can fool everyone? Fine, fine. Orem raised his hand and fiercely threw the bug to the ground. With a snap, the bug shattered into pieces, its shards flying, narrowly missing Ivy's face. You two have been plotting against me from the start, trying to take evidence from me. Despite all my precautions, you succeeded. Well, DD1. Orem's face was ugly and twisted. Shawn looked at him in this state, feeling a sense of familiarity. Oh, he had seen this before in Natalie. Shawn clasped his hands behind his back. Orem, at this point, we can still negotiate. Release? Ivy first. No way. Once you and Ivy leave here the next second, Gale will know all the truth. Orem said. No, he could not allow Gale to know. She would hate him, be disappointed, look at him with such accusing eyes. Orem could not bear it. He loved Gale so much that he was willing to change himself and become cunning and ruthless, all just to win her over. Just like Natalie once wanted to win him over. So it turned out he really was like Natalie. You're still afraid? Afraid that Gale will know the truth? Shawn sneered. Then why did you do it in the first place? When you drugged her tea, when you took her to the hotel, even when you... Shawn could not continue. Saying more, he might not be able to resist dispensing justice on Orem right then and there. Orem almost tainted the pure and innocent Gale. Thankfully he intervened in time. Otherwise Orem would have succeeded. All right, Orem. Shawn pursed his lips. I can promise you, I won't give the evidence to Gale, and she'll never know the truth. I don't want to see her heartbroken over you. Orem stared at him. State your conditions. My conditions are simple. Firstly, no matter what excuses or explanations you use, you must voluntarily admit to Gale that you didn't touch her that night. Making her completely believe that everything between you two has always been innocent, Shawn remained calm and composed. Secondly, release Ivy and stop bothering her. Chapter 2004. Never meet Gale alone again, always keeping a distance of 2 meters from her. That was Shawn's only requirement. He was generous enough to give Orem a last ounce of dignity. Shawn would have ruined him long ago if it were anyone else. Orem did not believe it for a moment. Who are you? I know very well who you are, Shawn. I nearly tainted Gale. Would you let me off so easily? Because you are Gale's friend, Shawn replied simply. That was Shawn's reason for forgiveness. If it were just their personal vendetta, Shawn would have taken severe action against Orem, ensuring he had no chance for redemption with violent methods. He was lucky it involved Gale. The thought of Gale flashed through Shawn's mind like a breath of spring wind, smoothing away all his resentment, anger, and hatred. He had to consider Gale. I have no way out now. From the moment I decided to compete with you for Gale, I never considered a peaceful resolution. Either I get her, or I lose her completely. Orem replied. Those were the only two outcomes, success or failure. Orem did not want to maintain this friendship anymore. What was the point of struggling so hard only to end up back where he started? Shawn narrowed his eyes. Orem, are you heading down the same path as Natalie? No wonder they were engaged and able to live together for so many years. These two were really alike. They were both inherently bad, and equally stubborn. Back then, Natalie also had a way out but refused to take it, insisting on a fight to the bitter end. Now, Orem was doing the same. Don't bring up Natalie to justify your actions, she's gone, hardly anyone remembers her now. Shawn, if you dare give the evidence to Gale, then I can make Ivy. Orem retorted. He did not finish the threat, but Shawn understood. With Ivy in Orem's hands, she was like a fish on a chopping board, ready for him to kill. The more you act, the more mistakes you make. Orem, I can give you some time to think, Shawn said. No need. Don't try to play that game with me. Orem interrupted directly. Shawn lifted his chin slightly, looking at him. Do you think you have a chance of winning? It's not over yet. Not until we see the final outcome. Right now, maybe I'm at a disadvantage. No, I'm not at a disadvantage. Orem's confidence made Shawn almost laugh. Chapter 2005, what a clown. Did you arrange for the paparazzi to take intimate photos of Ivy and me, Orem? Were you hoping that a few pictures could break Gale and me apart? Your plan failed? Shawn asked. Yes, it was me. Orem seized the opportunity to voice his doubts. Why does Gale trust you so much? Because she and I are married, bound together through thick and thin, for better or for worse, till death do us part. Orem, you've never experienced marriage, so you don't understand how important trust and responsibility are. That's why you foolishly thought a few photos could come between Gale and me. But why did you tolerate seeing Gale and me lying together on a bed in the hotel? Shawn replied calmly. I know she wouldn't betray me. Even if by some chance something did happen, she would be innocent, a victim, manipulated. The more so, the more I need to stand by her, support and rely on her. He paused, looking at Orem with profound pity. You will never understand. Orem was infuriated but could not argue back. Throughout, he had never truly won Gale. He indeed did not understand. At this moment, Ivy's voice softly spoke up. Orem, why do you feel this way? You don't understand because you've never truly loved anyone. Nonsense. Orem denied it repeatedly. I have loved and I love Gale. I promised to marry her when we were young. Now, after all these years, even as she's a wife and mother, I still love her. I've only loved her from start to finish. Ivy shook her head. You don't love Gale, you love your own obsession. Orem was taken aback. You love a memory, and more than that, you love yourself. What you love most isn't Gale, it's yourself. Ivy looked into his eyes. Orem, everything you want you got. The only thing you've lost is Gale. That's why you're trying to regain what you lost. Actually, what you have isn't love, it's possession. The Gale who disappeared in childhood is the first time you tasted loss in your life. Since then, you've anchored your heart. You don't allow yourself to lose someone who should have been yours. You don't truly love Gale. Every word from Ivy struck Orem. She had articulated his truest feelings. Shut up! You don't get to speak here! Orem roared. He glared at Ivy, his eyes almost tearing apart. Do you know what position you're in now? You're in my hands. I can do whatever I want to you. Your life or death, your innocence. I can destroy them at any time. Do you understand that? Ivy just looked at him calmly. I don't care. What do you care about, Tien? The truth. Even if I die, I have no regrets now. I have the evidence, I've exposed your true face. I'll die without regrets. Ivy replied. Orem raised his hand again. Ivy looked at him without blinking. Hit me, go ahead, you're not the first one to lay hands on me. Go ahead. Looking at her face, pale yet still exquisite and beautiful, for a moment, Orem could not bring himself to strike her. Let her go. Orem, tearing apart brings you no benefit, Shawn said. It's impossible. All right, the third time's the charm. I've asked you 3 times already. If you keep pushing, don't blame me for being ruthless. Shawn turned his head and glanced out the window. I can mobilize hundreds of well-trained bodyguards at any time. With one command, they will storm through your house. With your bodyguards, how long do you think you can resist? Shawn said. Orem replied. With Ivy in my hands, she's my hostage. Of course you can command them to surround my home. And I, of course, can do whatever I want with Ivy. For example. Chapter 2006. His fingernail grazed Ivy's cheek. What if I ruin this pretty face of hers, how about that? Ivy showed no expression. Shawn did not feel threatened either. By ruining her, you're also ruining yourself. Do you think Gale won't notice the scars on her face? How will you explain that? Stop using Gale to pressure me. I never need to use my woman to suppress others. I'm just reminding you that every wrong step you take now is hurting Gale, ruining her trust and feelings for you. Shawn responded with overwhelming authority. Does she have feelings for me? Friendship is still a feeling and familial affection is even more so. Aurum fell silent, thinking. Indeed, holding Ivy hostage was not a long-term solution. Ivy had already revealed her stance. She was on Shawn's side, and would not be used by Aurum. Keeping her for another day would only count for another day. What about after that? What would happen next? Was he supposed to just watch Shawn hand over the recordings to Gale, exposing all his unspeakable deeds to the light of day? No way, it was far from over. Aurum suddenly laughed. Shawn, oh Shawn, and you Ivy, do you both really think I have no cards left to play? Shawn's lips tightened. Aurum lifted Ivy's chin. There's something I forgot to tell you. That night I didn't just give you to Paul. I also took some photos and videos. The color drained from Ivy's face. You can guess what kind of photos and videos they are without me telling you, right? Do you want to see them? They're in my photo album, Aurum asked. He took out his phone. No. Ivy grabbed his wrist, clenching it tightly, her teeth gnashing. Aurum, you beast, you! Shameless, heartless monster. Not only had he allowed Paul to violate her, but he had also taken indecent photos and videos. Are you sure you don't want to see them? They're very clear, with both your and Paul's faces visible from various angles. Ivy's body trembled uncontrollably. Her eyes turned red as she stared at Aurum, unable to understand why she had once felt anything for such a man devoid of decency. He was not worth it. Seeing Ivy in this state, Aurum's anger dissipated, replaced by a sense of comfort and smugness. Being manipulated and manipulating others were two completely different experiences. Ivy, Paul is a director, and you happen to be the lead actress in his current film. If these photos and videos get out, you know very well what people will say about you, right? Aurum said. They would say that she was a slut, trying to use her body to climb the career ladder. To secure a role, she did not hesitate to give herself to the director. That would be everyone's first impression of Ivy upon seeing those images. From her image as an elegant and unattainable goddess, she would instantly become a pathetic bed warmer. Ivy's image, reputation, and commercial value would plummet. She would face endless negative publicity. Not to mention that these photos and videos would be widely circulated online, intruding on her privacy. You even? Ivy could not form a complete sentence, her throat dry and itchy, filled with a desire to drag Aurum down with her. Of course, I kept something in reserve to control you. See? Isn't it coming in handy now? Chapter 2007. After speaking, Aurum looked at Shawn. Do you want to see them, so you don't think I'm lying? Shawn's face darkened. He had not expected that Aurum would have taken compromising photos of Ivy. If those photos were posted online, they would be devastating for Ivy. Not to mention the impact on her career, public scorn alone could destroy her. As a woman, how could she endure such severe online harassment? Seeing the change in Shawn and Ivy's expressions, Aurum finally felt he had the upper hand, and more confidence. Think it over carefully. If you insist on giving the evidence to Gale, then I'll post all of Ivy's photos online, ruining her completely, Aurum said. He did not believe Ivy could ignore her reputation. Moreover, Ivy was the spokesperson for their jewelry brand. If she had any links to negative news, it would also affect the brand. With this tactic in hand, Aurum finally felt confident. Shawn did not speak. He certainly could not sacrifice Ivy. She had already done so much. Without her, there would be no evidence. Mr. Wood, don't worry about me, Ivy said at this moment. Shawn looked at her. Aurum was very surprised. You're crazy, Ivy continued. Don't worry about me, and don't let Aurum threaten you. Go ahead and tell Gale, reveal Aurum's true nature. I don't care if the photos of me and Paul are posted online, open to public comment. Ivy, you have no shame. Aurum could not believe it. Those photos were embarrassing even to look at privately, and yet Ivy did not care if they were spread online for everyone to see? Ivy spelled it out clearly. What I care more about is the truth. From the moment she lost her innocence, Ivy's life had been ruined. Only revenge kept her going. Yes, she had feelings for Aurum, and even after knowing his true nature, she could not suppress her emotions completely, but she would not love him without limits. He was not worthy, he deserved to be alone forever. No, you may agree, but I don't, Shawn refused. Ivy was taken aback. Mr. Wood, you've already done enough, I want to protect you, Shawn said. If bringing down Aurum meant sacrificing Ivy, what kind of man would that make him? He would be a man without responsibility or accountability. Before Ivy could respond, Shawn looked at Orem. Let her go. I can promise not to give the evidence to Gale. This ends here. You also can't post the photos online. Are you sure? Orem asked. Sure. Ivy shook her head. No, that's it. It's decided. Orem laughed. Good, you are straightforward. Shawn, remember your words. If Gale finds out about this, then I guarantee, within an hour, Ivy and Paul's photos will be online. Shawn nodded. Deal. Chapter 2008. Orem gestured, and the bodyguard stepped back, releasing Ivy. She stood still, glancing at Orem. Ivy had acted in many roles, experienced numerous characters, and lived different lives through scripts. Almost every director and actor she had worked with praised her for her acting skills, especially her expressive eyes that could convey complex emotions in a few glances, captivating the audience. However, that was acting. When the camera shut off, and the director called cut, she would step out of her role and return to her own life. However, looking at Orem now, Ivy did not know how to express her emotions. She felt a mix of love and hate, laced with disappointment and disgust. In her heart, Orem was such a hypocritical and complex person. There's something I've always wanted to ask you. The first time we met, outside the Wood group, a boy on a skateboard lost control and came rushing toward me, and you saved me. Ivy said, looking at him. Yes. What about it? Was it a coincidence or was it premeditated? Orem, I want the truth. Orem met her gaze. That was a coincidence, just a chance encounter between us. It was simply fate. I saw you in danger and naturally helped you. Ivy smiled faintly. All right, I understand. I believe it was a coincidence. She looked away and started walking toward Shawn. After 2 steps, she heard Orem say, however, I messed with your car. Ivy's body trembled violently. Biting her lip, she said, got it. She had suspected Orem had sabotaged her car to have a reason to offer her a ride and chat and get to know her. Ivy did not care about that. What she cared about was their first meeting. It was from that initial encounter that Orem gave her those heart-fluttering feelings. It was then that Ivy understood what it meant to fall for someone at first sight. Knowing this heart-stirring meeting was arranged by fate, she felt content. At least their initial meeting was not part of a scheme. Ivy walked up to Shawn. He noticed the fresh red handprint on her face. His lips tightened, but he said nothing, his sharp gaze sweeping over Orem. Shawn turned and walked out, with Ivy following him. They walked out of the mansion, one behind the other. Orem watched their backs, his eyes slowly darkening. In the car, Shawn gripped the steering wheel in silence, focused on driving. Ivy kept her head down. After a while, Shawn said, the slap you received today is not in vain. You will have your revenge one day. Will I slap Orem in return? Do you want to? Ivy thought seriously for a moment, then shook her head. No, I don't. If a dog bit her, did she have to bite it back? Shawn seemed surprised. You don't hate him? Chapter 2009. I hate him deeply. Apart from acting, no one has ever slapped me. Orem was the first, Ivy said. She would remember that slap and the pain it brought forever. It hurt her heart, and left a scar. I'll take you home first. I'll arrange for bodyguards to follow you around the clock to protect you from any of Orem's tricks, Shawn said. Thank you, Mr. Wood. No need to thank me. I should be thanking you. Without you, we wouldn't have that solid evidence. Both Gale and I owe you our gratitude, though she will never know about this. If Gale knew the whole story, she would certainly feel heartbroken over the grievances Ivy had suffered. Ivy gazed at the road ahead. Are you really going to keep the evidence to yourself, not go public, not tell Gale, and keep her in the dark? We have no choice. Otherwise the photos. I said I don't care. I'm safe now, no longer under Orem's threat. My life is secured. I'm not afraid of him anymore, Ivy said. Surviving and getting out of Orem's house was already a great relief for Ivy. Her reputation and innocence were secondary. The truth was more important. Besides, she was the victim. She was forced. Even if Orem spread the photos online, she could hold a press conference to clarify, explain, and sue Orem to clear her name. Nevertheless, those photos would always exist, constantly being viewed by many people, which was deadly for a girl and would impact her entire life. I care, and Gale cares even more. Ivy, don't act rashly. Let's think of a better solution. Direct confrontation with Orem is the last resort, Shawn said. Ivy murmured, what better solution could there be? After thinking for a while, Shawn came up with a plan. First, cut all ties with Orem, then with Paul. Stop filming the movie, and announce your retirement. Okay. Leave the rest to me. Ivy nodded and remained silent for the rest of the trip. Shawn parked the car outside her apartment building. Before getting out, Ivy said, "Mr. Wood, if there's no better way, then let's confront Orem heads-on. You give the evidence to Gale and let him post my photos online. I'd rather be ridiculed and humiliated by everyone than keep the evidence hidden and feel this suffocated. I'll handle it." Ivy got out of the car in a daze, like a walking corpse, mechanical and numb. She heard soft footsteps behind her. It was bodyguards following to protect her. Shawn had rescued her, and now she was free. However, no one could stop her from feeling terrible. No one could truly save her. Shawn watched Ivy enter the apartment complex before driving away. He felt a lot of guilt toward Ivy for not protecting her properly. As soon as Shawn stepped into his living room, Joshua rushed over. Shawn, how is it? What's the situation? Why did you take so long? I've been so worried. Your Ivy is home safe, Shawn replied. Joshua sighed in relief. That's good. However, he quickly remembered something. What's in the recording from the bug? I didn't get a chance to listen to it. Tell me. Chapter 2010. Kids shouldn't intervene, Shawn said firmly. Joshua was stunned. When he was needed, he was praised for his actions. Once he was no longer needed, he was dismissed like a child. Shawn, you can't treat me like this. Joshua wrapped his arms around Shawn's waist, jumping onto him and clinging like a koala. Shawn looked at him expressionlessly. Joshua just hung there, staring back. I've made significant contributions, haven't I? Haven't I done great things? And now, I don't even have the right to know? Joshua said. What good is it for a child to know so much? Maybe I can help. Don't underestimate me. Remember, I was the one who helped deal with Natalie, that bad woman. Today, when Ivy was in danger, it was me who saved her. Joshua replied proudly. Shawn reached out and scooped Joshua up into his arms. Yes, indeed. Thanks to you for staying calm and not acting suspiciously, you safely handed me the bugging device. Well done, I commend you. Joshua looked disappointed. Just verbal praise? What do you want? I can agree to anything. I want to know what happened to Ivy. Shawn pursed his lips and tapped Joshua's forehead. Why are you so nosy? Because I've been thinking about it since you left. Ivy and Orem are a couple. She should be safe at Orem's house. Why did she think of finding you through me instead of directly going to Orem when she was in danger? Could it be that Orem couldn't handle it? Or did she not want Orem to know? But what kind of thing would she rather let you help with than Orem? Joshua was baffled. Shawn replied calmly, I can't tell you yet. Hey Shawn, if you keep this up, I won't help you next time. Were you helping me? Joshua pouted. Fine, I was helping Ivy. Keep this matter confidential. Only you and I should know, Shawn instructed. Why? Why do you always need a reason? Joshua looked at him curiously. Shawn, what are you up to? Shawn just asked, will you keep it a secret or not? Yes. Joshua nodded quickly. But you have to promise me that once things are resolved you'll tell me everything. Shawn thought for a moment and agreed. Okay, he was his son, who would one day take over the Wood Group. He should be trained from a young age, not pampered like Nicole, who was raised to be like a delicate flower. Boys needed to experience more hardship. Joshua was finally satisfied and stopped asking further questions. Instead, Shawn asked, Joshua, during your time in the small town, was it always Orem who took care of you? Yes, he was very kind. Always buying gifts, clothes and snacks for me and Nicole. He often sent money to Aunt Zoe and told her to buy us lots of food. Did he visit the small town often? Joshua shook his head. He only came once on Mommy's birthdays. We mostly communicate through phone calls and video chats. Shawn asked, so where does Orem rank in your heart? Who's the most important? Well, Joshua began counting on his fingers.